everybody, and welcome to From the Mezzanine. I'm your host, Lindsay Stone. From the Mezzanine is the Broadway podcast for the Broadway fans. On here, we talk about everything Broadway news, Broadway Grosses, and let's be honest, all of the Broadway tea and gossip that happens week to week in the Broadway stratosphere. How's everybody doing? I'm doing fantastic. I had a little bit of a trip down to my home in Texas. I got out of the city for about a week, and while I was there, I saw Beetlejuice. OMG. I loved it. And let's talk about it. So my little cousin, shout out Micah, he's a big fan of the podcast. Just kidding. I wish he was, but I don't think that he would think this was very entertaining if he watched it. But one day, I put on the Beetlejuice soundtrack for him, and he started singing along. I looked over to him and I was like, where have you heard this? And he knew so many of the words. And so I knew that Beetlejuice was touring and they were coming to Dallas. And so before he ever even moved to New York, I told him I would take him to Beetlejuice. And then, of course, we didn't know if that would happen because I moved and everything, but we were able to make it happen. And so we took him to Beetlejuice, and I started really liking Beetlejuice whenever I covered it on the podcast months ago. And it was far after, I don't even think it was on Broadway anymore at that point. So it was the most inopportune time to become a Beetlejuice fan because there was no way that I could go and see it myself. And so I accepted my fate. I literally fell in love with Sophia Ann Caruso. She's so good, the one who played Lydia in the original Broadway cast. And since then, I've actually seen like Alex Brightman everywhere. That man works so hard for Broadway things. He, of course, played Beetlejuice. Anyways, I like deep dived into their characters and them as actors. And so I just really loved the cast. I loved the music. And I was sad that I wasn't able to see it when I was on Broadway. But nevertheless, I got to see it on the national tour in Dallas. My little cousin was so hyped for it. He had the absolute best time of his freaking life. And I didn't realize that maybe it's not exactly like totally child appropriate. So oops. Luckily, I think a lot of the things went way over his head, but I probably wouldn't bring my child to that. It says, I think, that they like only allow children, or it's appropriate for children 13 and up, which he is. So anyways, I felt like, oops, Micah, just don't tell your mom about the words you heard. Anyways, but it was so much fun. I thought the cast was amazing. The girl who played Lydia, wait, I don't have my playbill. Okay, playbill acquired. It got a little bit damaged in the transition of coming back to New York. But let's look at the cast because they were so good. Okay, so Beetlejuice was played by Justin Collette. And he doesn't really resemble Alex Brightman, but he was fantastic. He did in the Beetlejuice getup because it is such a distinct costume. And I loved the fact that there were so many people in costume who are in the audience. It's obviously like a cult classic following sort of movie. And it was very, I haven't seen a Broadway show where people were super dressed up like that since I saw Wicked's 20th, which so many people were dressed up for. But that's just a beautiful thing to observe. It's like, you put time and effort into what you're going to wear to the theater today, and you're in a place with like-minded individuals who all understand who you're dressed as and what it's for. I love that. I think it's so sweet. And so it was really fun to see everybody sort of cosplaying as Beetlejuice. And then Isabella Essler, she played Lydia. Literally excellent. But this entire cast was amazing. The one who played Delia, Sarah Leitzinger, she resembled Leslie so much. But I thoroughly enjoyed this national tour cast for Beetlejuice, and I was just ecstatic. I loved it. The music is genuinely so good, and oh my gosh, I have to tell y'all, Beetlejuice is written by the same people who did Gutenberg, and there were some Easter eggs that I caught on to that were in Beetlejuice that I was like, I know this is a wink to Gutenberg, and y'all know I'm obsessed with Gutenberg. So Delia in the musical, whenever the dad proposes to Delia, he says, "Delia Schlimmer, will you marry me?" Schlimmer, of course, is the town, the hamlet, if you will, that Gutenberg is based in. And then also in the song that's I was hot, I went to Paris a lot. I mean, everybody knows that song because it went TikTok viral. That song has all kinds of characters who are in the netherworld, who are dead. And one of the characters I noticed was a hang glider, which in Gutenberg, Josh Gad's uncle, they got the money for the show because his uncle just had recently started hang gliding and then recently stopped hang gliding. So I feel like that was a nod to Gutenberg and to his uncle. I caught on. It might be a stretch, but I think it was a little Easter egg that they put in Beetlejuice to give a little wink and a nod to Gutenberg. Loved that. The Schlimmer was pretty obvious. The hang glider was like a little bit more of a stretch, but it was there. So I need the playwrights, Anthony King and Scott Brown, to let me know if that was in fact an Easter egg to Gutenberg, please. Okay, anyways, I don't know if there's anything else I wanted to tell you about Beetlejuice, but if it's coming to your town and you're over the age of 13, like totally go and see it. It is so funny. The music is just excellent, which it's so clever. It's so cleverly written. And I just wouldn't expect anything else from these playwrights because they're just amazing. And the story is really easy to follow. It's a very interesting story. My little cousin is really into it because he's very into like the spooky things like Halloween. And so it held his attention. Plus with all the really interesting props and the stage design, it's very interesting. At the end, Lydia flies similarly to how she does in the movie. There's the big giant snake that eats up the ghosts. It's very engaging and it holds your attention. So I think it's a great show to bring, teenagers to, but I would, depending on what you want to expose your kids to, if I would have known they dropped the F-bomb multiple times, I probably would have reconsidered bringing my little cousin. But I didn't know that. But aside from that, I loved it. Like loved. Also, guys, I want to let y'all know, I made it right on my promise that once we hit 50 subscribers on YouTube that I would do a lip sync sing along outside of the Richard Rodgers Theater to Hamilton, and it is officially posted on my Instagram and my TikTok, so go and enjoy that. And I feel like maybe in my next episode, I'm not gonna put myself on the spot right now to come up with like what I'm gonna do to hit 100 subscribers, but right now we're at 70 last I checked, and I'll commit to doing something once I hit 100. Maybe I'll like give a listener shout out or a follower shout out. That could be fun. But if you don't already subscribe to my YouTube channel, you can find it by typing in From the Mezzanine, a Broadway podcast. And then I'm also on TikTok and Instagram, guys. Go and follow me there. And while we're at it, why don't you go ahead and leave a rate and review? It does amazing things for the pod that you hopefully love so dearly. Okay, before we get into our Broadway grosses and our Broadway news, I kind of just want to have like a little sit down chit chat about Ariana Grande going on the Zach Sang show right before her album is about to be released this coming week. And she really gave us a lot about what the audition process was like for Wicked, what filming Wicked was like. So I just want to kind of talk about that because I found it really interesting. And everything that comes out about the Wicked movie, I hyperfixate on and I obsess over. And this interview gave a lot of the inside scoop behind the scenes, what is going on over at Wicked. And so I just want to chat with you guys about it. One thing that I found really interesting was that Ariana said, obviously, like she has been obsessed with Wicked, like many of us I'm sure are, since she was 10 years old. And so this was like the end all be all role for her. And in this interview, I'll have it in my show links below, she really spoke to that and just how much Glinda has, and I really agree with her in this sense. She says whenever she was 10, she would look at Glinda somewhat of like a clown, and she was so funny and so beautiful. But as you watch her as an adult, you see her character arc and how much she grows throughout the show and is so strong, and she cares about the people of Oz so dearly, and she wants to be their leader, and they need somebody to step up, and she wants to be that symbol for them. But she's also put in a very hard place by Madame Morrible and the Wizard, and so she does have such an incredible story arc. And as you grow up, this show, I always say, it never gets old, and it truly doesn't, because when you're younger and you're listening to it, it just sounds like a love story. It sounds like two sisters who can't get along. That's kind of how I always saw it. But when you see it and you're older, there's a lot of depth to the story. And so I thought the way that she articulated that was really interesting to hear, because it was a shared experience. Like I agreed with a lot of the things that she was saying, and a lot of the things about Glinda that changed her. She says Glinda is very outspoken and she's very confident in what she says, and she says that has helped her and that's rubbed off on her. She always felt like she was put into a corner and she would make herself small, but Glinda takes up space and makes herself very large, and she's confident in who she is and what she believes. And I thought, I hadn't thought about that for Glinda before, but that's so very true. She is unashamed to be who she is. And that is a really beautiful aspect of Glinda. I think when you, at least now that I'm older, whenever I was young, I always really was like, I'm a Glinda, because I wanted to be the cute, popular girl, right? But as you're older, you realize you identify with Elphaba a lot more because, you know, she struggles, she's different, she has her beliefs that she's steadfast in, and people don't agree with her. And anyways, it's just an interesting thing to think about that even Ariana Grande had a similar upbringing in that way, that she related to Glinda, and now that she's older, she sees her in a different light, a stronger light. And I felt that too, definitely, whenever I was seeing Wicked back at their 20th anniversary. I certainly felt that. But in addition to that interesting anecdote, she also says that the audition process took 6 months, which I don't know how long a typical audition process is, but that seems like incredibly long to me. And I think a lot of people who have come out and said that they also auditioned for Glinda, such as Amanda Seyfried and Dove Cameron, they both auditioned for Glinda. They both talked about how the audition process was extensive. And it's kind of wild. I could see Dove Cameron as Glinda for sure, kind of as much as I could see Ariana. Dove is younger, and Glinda is young in the movie, or in the musical, of course. And Amanda Seyfried, I honestly, I really couldn't see her in the role. I don't love her singing voice in Les Mis and Mamma Mia. She had a very soft voice, and I don't see how she could sing the operatic belty. I'm probably using the wrong vocal phrases because I'm not a professional. But I can't really picture Amanda Seyfried in that role. I never in a million years would have been able to picture Ariana Grande. But after I listened to this interview, I was almost reminded she did get her start in the theater. She was really a good child actress. She really was. I was obsessed with her whenever she was on Victorious as Kat. She's a very, very talented singer. But I kind of felt like I had blinders on because her pop princess identity is what's pushed out to the public, and so it's hard for you to picture that person as Glinda the Good. But after I watched her in a full interview, and plus she's done a lot of things to her appearance and to her voice that sound and look more like Glinda, and I don't think that that's good or bad. It's kind of like the Austin Butler effect that everybody was talking about with Elvis. Ariana Grande definitely sounds differently, but she says as she was in that 6-month long audition process, she was doing vocal lessons and getting dialect coaching nearly every single day. And so that obviously is going to stick with a person. And I think people are really judgmental of Ariana Grande as Glinda. But you have to give her some credit. She has put in the work, and she looks up to this character just as much as we all do. I don't think she's going to fall short. I don't. I think I'm going to be critical, but I don't think she's going to fall short. I think a lot of people are going to underestimate her, and I don't know. I don't know how it's going to end up. It is really, really hard to erase the pop princess that we've seen, singing every song that comes on the radio. It felt like it a lot of times, but I do think that since she holds Glinda on such a pedestal, I think she's going to do everything she possibly can. And I think that she has done everything she possibly can, what with doing the dialect coaching and taking the vocal lessons. Somebody with a bigger ego might come in and be like, I don't even need vocal lessons. I'm Ariana Grande. I've got this in the bag. But she obviously is a tremendous amount of commitment to the role. And I know I've said she has been method acting too close to the sun, but it is almost impossible. They spent years in London filming, and I feel like it is almost impossible, especially with a character that is so relatable like Glinda, to not make yourself a little Glinda-fied and kind of change a little bit of who you are when you are portraying a character that you've looked up to and that has been your dream role. I mean, who wouldn't make Glinda their entire personality if they were in the musical, So I feel like we need to give her a little bit of credit. Her album comes out this week, and I've always actually really enjoyed Ariana Grande's albums, especially her latest ones. And so I think it's going to be a great album. I wonder if there's going to be it's a concept album she was talking about. So I wonder if there is going to be some mention or symbolism to Wicked in some of her songs. I feel like there could be, because she has been in it and in the Glinda frame of mind for so long. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's, a talk about a bubble or a yellow brick road or dancing through life, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm excited to listen to her album that's coming out. And I will have that entire interview in the show notes. And I kind of watched it so that y'all wouldn't have to. But if you want to, it'll be down there. It was a very long interview. And if I'm being honest, like, it was very vague because the album hadn't come out yet. They were talking in like such vague language. But there were some big takeaways, i.e. the audition process, that I thought was just fascinating. She said on their very first day of filming, they were in a dorm room, I assume like at Shiz University, possibly like part of the set of that maybe. And that John M. Chu just said, okay, let's start Wicked. And like everybody started crying. And then whenever they wrapped filming, she said her throat hurt because she was crying so much. So that's sad. And it just shows that I feel like it's going to be good. Like, I really do. I really think it's going to be good. But we've already talked all about that in our previous episode when I think it was 2 episodes ago, OMG, the Wicked trailer came out. So if you didn't listen to that episode, go back and listen because I say all my thoughts about the Wicked movie. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's head on into our Broadway Grosses. So, folks, this is for the week ending on February 25th. I cannot believe it's already March. That's insane. Okay, so let's see who our number one is. Oh my God, I'm shook. Guys, Wicked is number 1. Why? I'm so happy. It's Wicked number 1, then The Lion King at number 2, and then Hamilton. Oh, yeah. Oh my God, I haven't seen Wicked at number 1 like ever, other than the 20th. Oh my God. That's amazing. I'm so happy to see Wicked at number 1. Please keep it up, Wicked. Let's go. We have Merrily We Roll Along at number 4. MJ is 5. Sweeney is 6. So that's not a big dip for Sweeney. I know we've been tracking how Aaron Tveit and Sutton Foster just came into the roles. We've been curious if they were going to be able to sustain a high rank week to week like Josh Groban and Annalee Ashford were able to. So them being at 6th, it's a minor dip. It's not a big deal. We'll stay tuned for next week and see if they can maintain that sort of 5-6th area of the grosses. That's excellent. Moulin Rouge is 7th. I think Boy George being in the role is actually doing really good things, even though I know we probably have all heard him sing, and there's very much that is left to be desired. Let's just say that about his performance. It's not great. But I'm happy, I guess, for Moulin Rouge that they're doing so well in the Broadway Grosses. They weren't doing this well before Derek Klena and Boy George stepped into the roles. So way to go. I'm a little bit sad, I have to admit, because it's like people who are going to see it are seeing Boy George as Harold Zidler, and it's certainly not as good as it has been in the past. And so whatever, it is what it is. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, Aladdin is number 8. Harry Potter is 9, and Anne Juliet is 10. And Juliet is doing really well for themselves. I'm pretty happy. Okay, wait, let's just look at the ones that are just below. Back to the Future is 11, and Hadestown is 12. And Hadestown is sitting at 101% capacity. So they are full. And that's because Lola Tung and Jordan Fisher are in the cast right now, and another person that I don't know. And so good for Hadestown. That is absolutely incredible. Let's look at the ones that have like the lowest capacity just so we can be aware of what is probably going to close here soon. Okay, so Days of Wine and Roses, that is the show with Brian Darcy James and Kelly O'Hara, and that is playing at Studio 54. They played to audiences of 60% last week, so that's super duper low. Another one that is really low is A Beautiful Noise, which obviously we announced last week that they are closing this coming June, and that closing announcement doesn't appear to have caused an increase in grosses, although maybe it will next week. They are sitting at 67% capacity, and just a little bit better than A Beautiful Noise, Spamalot has 72% capacity. Spamalot is really not doing well. It'll close so soon, I'm sure of it. They can't maintain their big cast and everything. I'm surprised because it's actually like such a fun show, but it is what it is. It's been revived so many times on Broadway, so people have probably already seen it. Oh my God, guys, I wanted to tell y'all one more thing. Okay, last night I went to Marie's Crisis, which is in the Greenwich Village, and it is a bar that has been there for years. It is a gay bar, and they play acoustic Broadway show tunes. It was such an awesome experience. So for my tourists out there, for my New York City locals, if you haven't been, although I feel like if you're in the Broadway scene, you've probably experienced Marie's Crisis, I felt like a little crazy because they were definitely playing like Ragtime, Oliver, the old hits, and I just do not know those songs. But it was fun nevertheless. It would be a fun experience for anybody who is interested in that sort of thing, which if you're listening to this podcast, I have a feeling you might be interested in a show tune bar where you can sing along. And man, oh man, if I were a Broadway talent agent, that is where I would go. There were so many talented individuals there, like belting to high heaven. Oh, they were so good. So good. I wish I knew more of the songs. They played, I think I was there for probably like 3 hours and they played like 4 songs that I know, which is just really, really sad. But like they randomly played like one In the Heights song and then they finished the night out with 3 songs from Wicked. So at least we ended on a high note, literally. But yeah, it was kind of crazy. I was like, oof, I have a whole Broadway podcast, but we keep things modern over here. Y'all know I enjoy my modern musicals. So, but I would recommend it. Marie's Crisis in Greenwich. It was a very good time. All right, folks, let's head on into our Broadway news. So we got some word this week that Jinkx, Monsoon, and Corbin Bleu will be coming to the Little Shop of Horrors, everybody's favorite off-Broadway show, it appears. And they will be arriving on April 2nd. Jinkx, of course, was recently in Chicago, actually, and it was pretty much a very quick return to off-Broadway, and Jinkx will be playing Audrey, and Corbin Bleu will be Seymour again, reprising his role because he just recently left Little Shop right before Darren Criss joined, and they will be taking the stage on April 2nd. They just like keep pumping in new people. So I do not know Jinkx Monsoon very well, but my dear friend and friend of the pod, Bryn, she actually got to see Jinkx whenever they were on in Chicago. And I have heard nothing but fantastic things. It feels like this is like a little bit of a surprise that Jinkx is coming into the role of Audrey, especially opposite of Corbin. I want to see it just because I want to see their chemistry. I feel like this is a very unique casting and unique couple. And I'm excited to see that. I think it's going to be beautiful. Like, I'm really excited. I think Corbin Bleu is like just so endearing, and I feel like he plays a very good Seymour. So there have been a lot of people coming in and out of these roles, a lot of amazing castings, and I don't think I'll see Darren Criss because, let's be honest, those tickets are insane. I wish I would have seen Jeremy Jordan, but once again, those ticket prices were insane. But apparently Jinkx Monsoon has a huge following, so maybe we won't see a decrease in ticket prices with this casting, but I would like to see Corbin Bleu just because obviously I love him from High School Musical. And so hopefully, maybe, I say this every time we get a new casting, but maybe this is the casting that I'll finally get to see and I will pay top dollar for Little Shop. I'm intrigued. I like the unexpected. A lot of times lately, this is how they're announcing the castings. They post it on Instagram and they say, big casting news coming up. And so everybody's just glued to their phones, waiting anxiously to see who it's going to be. Everybody in the comments is saying who they think it's going to be, who they've heard through gossip or whatever, who they've heard is going to be stepping into this role. Absolutely nobody in that comment section that I saw guessed that it was Jinkx Monsoon. And so I love the unexpected. I love a unique casting whenever it's like, okay, obviously it's going to be so-and-so, which I feel like Moulin Rouge kind of does, especially with their Christians. I feel like their castings for Christian are always pretty obvious of who it's going to be. And so I love it when we get unique and we get creative and we see something that's different. So I'm super hyped for this. I'm definitely going to have to go back and watch Jinkx Monsoon on Drag Race so I can become a fan, because I'm sure that I will be. I think that their look is incredible. And so I'm intrigued. I'm definitely intrigued by this casting, and I kind of want to see it. I might dish out that cash. So Monsoon said in a statement, quote, "Little Shop of Horrors was my favorite movie musical as a kid, but Audrey is a role I considered out of this is so sweet. But Audrey is a role I considered out of the realm of possibility for me." They go on to say, quote, "To get to play her in this incredible production is terribly exciting. As a drag queen who grew up watching the iconic Ellen Green performance, I'm thrilled and honored to bring Audrey to life in a whole new way that also pays homage to her memorable origins." That is so sweet. That just sold me the ticket right there. I'm coming. Okay. So exciting. So like I mentioned before, Darren Criss and Evan Rachel Wood are currently in off-Broadway Little Shop of Horrors. And I didn't know, obviously we know Darren Criss is going to be good. I didn't know anything really about Evan Rachel Wood other than that she was in Frozen. And I am very pleased to learn that people are saying she is the best Audrey that they have casted in a long time. So if you are a Darren Criss fan and you're like, who's this? Who's playing Audrey? Like, I've hardly ever heard of her. Just know people are like rave reviewing her. She apparently is very good. So anyways, Evan Rachel Wood and Darren Criss' final performances are going to be March 31st. And just to reiterate, Jinkx and Corbin are going to be taking the stage on April 2nd. So very exciting. Darren Criss and Evan Rachel Wood had a very short stint. That was like super duper short. It makes me believe that Darren Criss is about to do something else pretty big. But yeah, exciting casting news. I love to see who they're bringing in and out of Little Shop because honestly, it feels like it is the most sought after casting in New York. I feel like the people who they are casting are desperate to be in this show. I don't know what it is. Maybe the pay is really good. I would have to assume that it is, considering the tickets are just exorbitant. But yeah, like the fact that they have had Jeremy Jordan and Darren Criss and Jonathan Groff before COVID, I feel like who could be next? You know who I want, which has probably already happened. I'm going to Google this real quick. I would like Daniel Radcliffe as Seymour. That would be so good. Has it happened? Let me look. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not looking like he's been in it yet. So maybe, just maybe, after they are done in July with Merrily We Roll Along, maybe Daniel Radcliffe would go and do Little Shop, even though I'm sure he'll want a break, but he would be so good as Seymour. He's got that nerdy boy next door kind of look. So believable. So believable. That role is kind of similar to his role that he is in right now, which maybe he'll want to do something a little bit different, but we'll see. Oh my gosh, I forgot to tell y'all. Not me like forgetting everything I need to catch up on. Okay. I'm seeing The Notebook tonight. I'm so excited. I can see my one true love, John Cardoza again. John, I miss you so much from Moulin Rouge National Tours, Christian, and I cannot wait to see him as Noah. I've heard such amazing things about The Notebook, so I'm really excited to be able to tell y'all all about my many thoughts, I'm sure, next week on the pod. But I'll leave it there. I'm so hyped. I'm ready to cry. I should not have put mascara on today, but oh well. We'll muddle through. I'm sure I won't be alone. Okay, to round out our Broadway news, folks, we got word that A Wonderful World, the Louis Armstrong Musical starring James Monroe Iglehart, is coming to Broadway. So this show was previously playing in New Orleans and Chicago, and then Spamalot happened, and like literally a quick turnaround. Right after they finished playing their off-Broadway show, James Monroe Iglehart took the stage in Spamalot. But fear not, because A Wonderful World is now planning on coming to Broadway in the fall. Another show coming in the fall that we have to look forward to. So exciting. The fall is kind of a scary time to arrive on Broadway because it's so long until Tony season. I've looked at pictures of this show, and of course, I'm an optimist, and so I think it looks good, and I think that it will be a success, especially with James Monroe Iglehart in the forefront of it. He looks so different in the role of Louis Armstrong. Like, I wouldn't even know that it was him at all. He looks very different. And to be honest, I don't know the personal story of Louis Armstrong. I just know him as being an incredible performer and trumpet player and singer. And so I'm really interested in seeing this show for that reason, because he is such a prolific person, and it feels like, I should know his story. So I'm glad that this is happening, and I'm glad that there's a Black story on Broadway. And so we actually already know when and where it is coming. So previews are going to begin on October 16th, my mom's birthday. This year, guys, I got her birthday wrong, which I cannot believe I'm saying on this podcast. Sorry, she listens. That better be her birthday. I don't know what is wrong in my head, but for some reason, recently, I have been getting everybody's birthdays switched up. I don't know what's going on, guys. I don't know. I have a foggy brain. Okay, but anyways, A Wonderful World is beginning previews October 16th at Studio 54, which is where Days of Wine and Roses is playing right now, and it will have an official opening on November 11th. So this is a new musical, which is rare far and few between on Broadway. So this is a brand new musical. Love that. And they've done their off-Broadway tryout. So when you're checking off all of the boxes that make me believe, okay, you've done your work, and I'm excited that you're finally coming to Broadway, they have taken all the steps. Off-Broadway tryout? Check. New musical? Check. James Monroe Iglehart? Check. Iglehart. Lindsay, correct yourself. It's Iglehart. For so long, I've been saying Eaglehart, which I don't know even why I would be saying that because it's spelled Iglehart. James Monroe Iglehart? Check. He is such an amazing person to have at the front of your musical, but it is important to note that if he is already committed to this, that either means that they know Spamalot is going to close so that he's obviously not going to be in it anymore, or they're planning on replacing him. So we at least know James Monroe Iglehart isn't going to be at the forefront of Spamalot until October 16th, which is interesting to note. Yes, this new musical is telling the story of jazz legend Louis Armstrong from his early days in New Orleans through 5 decades of international stardom through the eyes of the women in his life. Very, very interesting. Okay, so they took a male-led performance and kind of found a way to make it female-led. I absolutely love that concept. We have enough male-led shows on Broadway. Just saying. So I like that they kind of made that change. I don't know who the women in his life are. So this is a show I'd be going into like basically completely blind. But I have high hopes. And the fact that it's through 5 decades, that's really, really interesting. Maybe that's why James Monroe Iglehart looked so different in the photos, because they had to age him, start him out young and age him for 50 years. That's wild. But Iglehart said in a statement, quote, "I am so excited to bring this wonderful brand new musical to Broadway." He goes on to say, "American music wouldn't be what it is today without Louis Armstrong. And what is Broadway if not American music? Pops doesn't get enough credit for his contribution to our entertainment industry or our country. I know I have never studied, researched, or prepared for anything as much in my career as I have for this role. I feel such a strong connection and an obligation to bring his voice, his music, and his story to the one place where it could be presented in all of its glory, Broadway. I can't wait for you all to become a part of a wonderful world," quote. Love that. I think it's really interesting that he even noted that he had to study and research this extensively, because it's not his story. I feel like maybe just not to me, but I feel like it's not something that you learn about. But everybody loves and adores Louis Armstrong's music. I mean, who couldn't love A Wonderful World? That is in the American Songbook for sure. So very excited about this brand new musical that is coming to Broadway this October. That wraps up our Broadway news, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of From the Mezzanine. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a rate and review wherever you are listening right now. If you are watching this episode on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and comment and like. As well as go ahead and share this episode with your musical theater loving bestie. You guys are all of my musical theater loving besties, so that is why I have shared this with all of you. Go follow me on TikTok and Instagram at From the Mezzanine, and I will see you next Tuesday. Bye!